You can sort of think of the transitional system as being a very fluid system where you really don't want an axis of information where like everything is aligned perfectly. You want it to sort of just be more of a freestyle way of setting the text. But to have a sense of organization, you want to use what's referred to as parallelism. So that's a Gestalt principle where things sort of share the same horizon line. You know, they could be slightly curved, but as long as they sort of follow the same horizon, they'll look optically like they're connected. I think some of the stuff that we saw from Weingart, if you look through some of the examples that were being described, either in the video or in the slideshow, you'll notice that he uses this system through some of his experiments and work that he produced. Once again, I'm going to show some examples initially with just some basic shapes. Here is a structure where I have three sets of lines. Each one indicates where a line of text would possibly sit. They're basically stacked along an axis. They're aligned perfectly. How visually interesting is that? Not very interesting. I mean, it does give me some order. It does give me some structure, but oh hum, it looks like, you know, any other document. Well, simply establishing a pivot point. So I want the point of emphasis to be here, and I can always get rid of this later, right? Establishing a pivot point, and then sort of playing with the position, the starting point of each line, I start to create a little bit more of a visually interesting structure. Right, so let's take it a little bit further. Here, I'm experimenting with possibly arranging them in different combinations. So this is a set of three, a two, maybe one line floating on its own. And I'm also continuing to weave and trying to find how positioning these lines will affect the negative space, like how the user might look and weave their eyes through the negative space. I'm also considering how these might look like a texture. So the lines start to take on a perception that they're an overall shape or an overall texture. And if I bring them in closer together, they start to look maybe more dense or more textured. If I bring more lines together, once again, it starts to take on a different textural quality. Now it has a really big negative space in between the two. It almost looks like we have two parts to the composition. These simple changes in these shapes create different structures, different ways that the viewer might perceive the information on the page. Just by moving these lines around, I can rationalize how the user might sort of navigate, find their way through it, and once again, perceive what's important within the structure. This structure that I established here, I basically copied and pasted it over here, and then wherever there was a line, I set a line of text within it. And I think that all of these lines of text are the same size. They're all 27 points. However, I did play with different font weights. So these are the only variable that I changed was the font weight between the different lines of text. So some are bold, some are semi-bold, and some are regular. And so you can see that I'm able to establish some level of hierarchy through just changing the weights of the text. Another thing that you want to experiment with in this particular system is the spacing and the crowding of letters. So to create tension, to create visual interest, to create openness, to create different textural qualities. So this system is really playing off of the texture that the letters create and the negative space that the words and letters in combination creates. So you're sort of relying on that to create some sort of dynamic relationship and some sort of visually interesting relationship. Once again, pretty boring because everything is sort of set at the same size. It doesn't look that interesting, but it does have a dynamic quality. There is a sense of hierarchy within it.